How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Basic Training Intro to Python Skills for AI 2. My name is Ethan, and I'll be here to lead the session and help you learn more about Python today. I'm a junior at the University of Maryland in College Park, and my favorite programming language or tool is coincidentally Python. So let's get going. A little bit about Major League Hacking, which I'm assuming most of you already know about as you're joining me for Global Hack Week. But just in case you don't, Major League Hacking's mission to empower hackers. And we do that by having events throughout the year, known as hackathons, of course, where over 65,000 hackers attend, over 12,000 projects are created, and over 400 cities are represented. You can get more information about everything, all the awesome things that we have going on over at mlh.io. So what are you going to learn during this session? You're going to learn how Python can be used to create web apps, learn several useful Python libraries, and learn how to create a chat experience in an app. And why does this matter? Many artificial intelligence projects are on the web. You want to be able to share your cool work with others. Learning how to use a third-party library is a skill that is useful for many programming languages. And once you learn one programming language, you can learn any. So that's why it is a super useful skill. So if you remember from last time, we're going to be building a glitch bot, which you can get the starter code for over at mlhlocal.host/glitch-bot. And the way it basically works is in the first box, the user enters a person's Twitter name. In the second box, the user enters a message. And in the third, the Twitter name and message are sent to the app. Basically, this works using a library called Beautiful Soup, which is used to scrape up to 10,000 tweets from a user using the Twitter API. The app uses a Python library called Flask that handles the requests and responses, and the app is randomly returned or returns one of the tweets to you to be read or to be brought up on the screen. So what's web scraping? This is the major portion of this project that we're going to be working on together. Basically, lots of information on the internet is text, and Python has some libraries that allows you to easily scrape that text or basically copy it from the website into a file and organize it in any way that would be useful for you in your program. Most libraries have documentation to help you learn how to use the library, and that's why that's what makes it easy to use. And you can look at the Beautiful Soup documentation over at mlhlocal.host/beautifulsoup. And I'll have that open here in just a second as we begin to work. So basically, how are we going to rebuild it? So we're going to make our own copy of the code on Glitch. You'll read through the code and discuss it with others, and then you'll write some missing Python code, and then we'll recap. But basically, something that we like to go over first is to keep in mind that writing code can be tricky. And it's important to pay attention to some best practices to avoid, spending countless hours debugging and just feeling like you have no idea how to continue. This is a trick on how to avoid that. So essentially, so the majority of the time when something isn't working with your code, it's as simple as a typo. Make sure that you've typed everything correctly before moving on to other debugging techniques. So this is super important because, I've been there. I'm sure a lot of other people have been there where you've just spent hours trying to debug your code and it's due to you added an extra slash or an extra semicolon or something and it's causing it to not work. And it was only that simple fix that, was making everything not work. But also Glitch has some really cool features called rewind. And if your code was working before and it's not working now, you can use this feature basically to back up in your working history to when it was working. And overall, it's okay to make mistakes. You're trying to learn something new, and mistakes are a part of learning that new thing. So let's go ahead and get started. So what Python skills did we learn last time? If you were here with me, we got variables, loops, functions, and libraries. Variables being like they are in math, like we talked about. Loops are the structure of your program that could perform the same task multiple times. Functions allow you to reuse bits of your code throughout the program, and libraries are collections of functions that someone else wrote, which we can import into our own program to use. And What are we going to learn today? We're going to learn about regular expressions, which is a programming concept used to work with text, and imports, using data or functions from other sources like a library or another file in our project to access functions and use them. But like I mentioned last time, it still holds true. The best way to learn how to code is to code, not to read about it. So we want to dive in and get started. So head over to glitch.com if you hadn't already, and go over to sign in. And if you don't have an account, make one already. And what you're going to want to do is go over to mlhlocal.host/glitch-python2, which I'm going to do alongside of you. Log in my Google account. Okay, cool. And it's what we want to do once you're into the project is to click get, or to click edit project. So mlhlocal.host/glitch-python2. So I'll click use source and then remix to edit. So what you'll see is when you click on the top left of your screen in Glitch, you'll see you want to click Basic Training 2, and then you'll want to click Remix Project, which will allow you to make a copy of the code. And then now that you basically have a copy of your code, this is when we're going to go ahead and explore it. So now I'm going to kind of switch gears here and explain and go along with you in the code that we're looking at together. So this is my screen. And essentially what you want to highlight here is on the side, you have all these different files that do different things. The README is just the description. The config is where you're going to config different, different keys or different passwords that we're going to get later. Main.py is where the program is ran. This is for the bot. Requirements.txt is the list of all the imports that we'll be using, or all the Python modules that we will use in our project. And yeah, and the link is mlhlocal.host/glitch. I guess I should just go back because I don't remember. Glitch-python-2. All right. So like I mentioned, we got logo.svg, which is the logo image. We have script.js, this is the JavaScript file that responds to the center of the box on the web page. We have main.py, which is a Python file that handles the requests and the responses to our file. We have Twitter scraper, fetcher.py, readme.py, requirements.txt, and resources.markdown. So there's a lot of different files going on here. Let's look at them one at a time. So essentially, when you're running your Glitch app, what you're going to want to do is you can run it by just clicking show, which is on the top bar of the project. And then if you aren't ready to run, which we aren't, then we're going to have to write some functions first. So let's go ahead and do that. So if you go to the .env file, which should be on the left-hand bar, you'll want to open it up, and you can it'll, for me, it's coming up like this right now. But the way I want it, just because that's the way I'm familiar with, is in plain text. So you can, it's kind of easier to do it in graphical, but I'm going to do it in plain text, just so you can get your see what it's like to do it in like real code, a real coding environment. So so this is what you're going to want to add to those corresponding values. So the MLH Twitter API is that link right there, which unfortunately you're going to have to type out because I don't have the ability to copy and paste it right now either. So that's https://localhost -python -abstraction .glitch.me. And then Twitter fetcher is just going to be called scraper. Flask env is going to be development. And then Flask port is just going to be 500. And as you can see, if I add my screen back, I've added those corresponding values here. So the next thing is we're going to do is we're going to want to write some code. So we can head over to open scraperfetcher.py, which is in Twitter scraper. There we go. Twitter scraper fetcher.py. And we're going to implement the get elements method, which is going to return all the data from a Twitter account. We're going to use get user tweets, which extracts the tweet data from the elements data. And we're going to use clean tweets data, which removes the URLs and other data we don't want from the tweet. So first up, we got get elements. So this little code block you see here, that's essentially what your get elements function should look like after we're done here. What we're essentially going to do is we're going to use the libraries called requests and beautiful soup, which can scrape data from a website for us. And this function takes in a Twitter handle, and which represents the username. And then on line 12, which is a little bit above what you can currently see, but if you have it open on your screen, you can see that we create a full Twitter URL, and this works by adding two strings together. And the Twitter URL on line 8 and Twitter handle passed into the function as a parameter. So essentially, we're going to be getting different elements from the Twitter using the Twitter handle. So let's go ahead and implement that function now. So this is what it's going to look like. I'm going to type it in along with you. So first up, we got URL equals Twitter URL, all in caps, plus Twitter handle, which should match the parameter. Then response equals requests dot get URL, headers equal, and then in squiggly back brackets, we got user agent colon agent, all in caps. And then that's it for that line. And then lastly, we got HTML equals response dot content, essentially telling us that so first we're setting response to be response.get, which is going to get the data where the header it's going to get the data we want from the URL, and then we're setting this variable HTML to be the content of the response, which is going to make it in a more readable format. But it's still going to be in an HTML format. So what we want to do is we want to make it in an even more readable format by using a beautiful soup function, or by creating a beautiful soup object, which takes in an HTML code. So what we're going to do here is we're going to make a variable called soup and set that equal to beautiful soup. Beautiful soup, and then we're going to pass in HTML as a parameter, and in quotes, HTML dot parser. And what that's doing, like I said, is making a beautiful soup object with that HTML so we can access the data we want easily or more easier. And then lastly, we're going to return soup.findAll, and then we're going to pass into findAll content container tags, and then in curly braces we have class and content class name. So before I switch gears here, I want to make sure that it has all of everything that we need. Yep. So this is for the next function. So basically, this is our complete get elements function, which creates the URL using the regular Twitter URL that we have and the regular Twitter handle, and putting them together for a full URL. And then we're using response by using the requests import, and we're getting the get from that import, the get function from that import, and we're passing in the URL we made, and then this headers thing, user agent agents. And what this does is it's going to get us a response from the website or the Twitter page, and it's going to put it into an HTML format by setting HTML equal to request.content. And then we're going to have soup equals beautiful soup and we're going to pass in that HTML, which is going to make it in a more readable content, so that when we return it, we can call a beautiful soup function, find all, which is going to be which content container tags is going to be passed in, which is telling us, which is right now it's just div, but that's just going to help us separate the elements so we can access them later. So that's it for the get elements function. So now moving back to get user tweets. What this function is going to do is it's going to return a list of a Twitter user's recent tweets. So the first thing we're going to want to do that is call the get elements function that we just created. So we're going to do that by typing elements equals get elements, and then we're going to pass in Twitter handle to it. So what that's going to do, it's going to run this on the Twitter handle before and get us the soup object with the data of the specific Twitter user. And we're also going to want to do a couple different things here. So first, we're going to want to make an empty list called tweets. And then what this is going to do is it's going to end up containing a list of tweets that we extract using beautiful soup. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take that stuff we learned about loops, and for every tweet, we're going to essentially add it to the Twitter or to the tweets array. So first, we're just going to make the general structure of our nested for loop by typing for post in elements enter, and when you hit enter, it should automatically indent to the next. It should automatically indent the next line, and then you can type your next for loop for text in post.contents. And then so that's going to allow us to loop through each of the post's contents, and then within the for loop, we're going to check if text.string not in empty items. What that does is it's going to make sure that whatever text that we take from our tweet is not one of these. And essentially, that's because we don't want none. We don't want an empty string. We don't want the word done. This is the new line character. All things that are going to be absorbed when you take when you make it into a beautiful soup object. If you don't say not in empty items, you're going to have some extra none type or a new line characters stored, which we don't need because they're not really text. They're just like empty things in the tweet object. So that's what that's doing. And then so essentially now for every text that's not none or not null or not a new line, we're going to append them to the tweets array. I'm going to do that by doing tweets.append text.string. Because right now text is in HTML format, and by putting it in string, it puts the contents into a string format. And then at the end, we're just going to return tweets, which is going to get us a list of the different tweets that we want. So if we look at the code, we see that in lines 26 through 30, which is in that for loop we were just talking about, we're going through all of the HTML elements and checking the text to see if they contain information, and if they do, we append it, and yeah, and that's again checking if it's not in empty items. So now we have one more function to add, but before we get to that, I just want to share this screen one more time, show you that how it looks like on glitch. This is it right here. So this is the first function we implemented, and this is the second one we implemented. All right. So again, like now we got one more function to add. But before we do that, we got to introduce another concept called regular expressions. And we're going to clean up our tweets with a powerful program, this powerful programming tool. And what it does is it takes a sequence of characters, and it creates a search pattern. So we can use it to remove all the data that doesn't match our regex search criteria. So if you see right here, we have an example of a regex, like right here. And it might look a little bit confusing, but what it's saying is, well, RE is the Python regex library. So by using re.compile, we're saying from re, use the function compile. And then this little quote right here is the regular expression itself, which means create a regular expression R that finds text that starts with HTTP and is followed by any length of string. So basically, there's /s means string, and plus is saying any length. But there's different code and different things that you can learn using regular expressions. And if you look up regular expression interpreter or calculator online, there are great resources to learn it. But for right now, this is a pretty basic regular expression that we're going to use in our function. This is another example of it. So say you have this long string here, check out my URL, https myamazingurl.com. And then by using regular expressions, we can take just from the string just what we need, which again was something starting with HTTPS and then a string of any length following by that. So it's gonna find HTTPS followed by any length of string, and it's just gonna get you the length that you want. So let's see. So now we're gonna want to add some code to our clean tweets data function, and essentially, but first what we're gonna need to do is we're gonna need to define different things for the emoticons, symbols, and pictographs, map symbols, and flags and whatnot, because that can, I don't know, it's kind of like a special character name that we need to account for. So in order to do that, I know it's a lot of like random numbers and letters, and it's hard to see. So I'm going to try and get the, if I can see if I can copy and paste to that part for all of you. Let's see here. There we go. We got clean tweets data. So yeah, here you go. So this is this first block of code that I'm just going to copy and paste here because I know it's kind of complicated to have to just like kind of type out. So just that's going to be the first part of the clean tweets data, and that's just essentially defining the pattern that we're going to have for later. But the next thing we need to do is right the next part of this function. So yeah, so this is essentially what the entire function is going to look like. So once you have that first part copied in, you want to type this other part, which I'm going to go through. So you'll have URL pattern equals re.compile, and that's when you're going to type in that regular expression that we were talking about before, which is important because again, it's going to get just the URL that we were talking about. So then after you have that, you're going to want to do mentions underscore pattern equals re.compile, and that's going to get us the at that we were talking about. And then you're going to make an array cleaned tweets, and then you're going to loop through for tweet in tweets. Tweets is being the array that's passed into the function. And then you're going to basically remove the emoji and then remove the URL. And then you're going to append to clean tweets just the text. So essentially what we're doing right now is you have this list of tweets that has, you can say in one tweet, it has a ton of emojis and it has a link and it has a bunch of stuff. But at the end of the day, our project is just trying to, show us the text. It doesn't care about the links or the emojis. So what it's doing is it's going to use the regular expressions that we created and the emoji patterns and whatnot, and it's going to take the tweet, every tweet in this list of tweets that's passed into the function, and for each of the tweet, it's going to remove the stuff we don't want. Again, being the emoji, being the URL, and then it's going to return that clean array to us. And again, this is what I have. But again, it's the same code, but now you can see what it looks like in Glitch, just in case you were a little bit confused. Here are the three functions that we just implemented. So now, like it says, we created a new function that will remove all sorts of unnecessary characters from our tweets. But now if we go over to main.py, you can see how what we need to do now, which is we're going to see how it returns a tweet to the user. So on lines 17 to 20, you see that when a user enters a question on our webpage, we save their message in a variable called question, and then we save the Twitter handle of the one they want to talk to. On lines 23 through 27, we use a try block. And what this does is it allows the program to first attempt to do the code inside the block. And if it doesn't work, it's going to catch the exception. So instead of completely failing, it catches it. Line 26, we save the Twitter handle and the bot answer. And then on line 28, we send the answer to the user. On lines 26 through line 30, like I mentioned, this is the accept block. So if you catch an error, it can, instead of completely crashing, it could send, sorry, I couldn't process that, please try again. So now you can try out the app that we just created by clicking show, which I believe is on the top right of Glitch. Let's see here, tools. Yep. So if you click show, which I'm having trouble currently finding, but once you click show, you can realize what changed. And in the next workshop, what we're going to do is we're going to incorporate this artificial intelligence so that our app actually responds to our message rather than it just returning a random tweet. So right now, when you type in an at, it's going to try and make a chat with all of the different tweets that this user had. But instead, in the future, what we're going to do is use AI so it could think a little bit more about what it's going to return. And it might return a tweet that makes more sense for what you type in at first. So with that, let's just like recap what we learned. We have a Python is a programming language that you can use for many, many things. And regular expressions are used to clean data. They're used to take only the parts of data that you want, or like in a string. And Python tools, you can include imports, returns, and try except blocks, which are all really important things that I encourage you to look more into and try in different scenarios. But with that, there's a lot of what you can do here. There is a lot of code in this app that we didn't get to review. If you want to try and read it and understand it on your own, that would be a great resource. Another thing you can do is check out codeacademy.com's free Python lessons. And in addition, there's just tons of Python tutorials and YouTube resources. So it's really, really a great language to learn because there's a lot of resources. And then you can take the third workshop, which will teach you more about AI involving this. But with that, that's all I have for you all today. I hope that you learned a lot. If you have any other questions, feel free to send me a message in our MLH Discord. Or again, we'll be having the third workshop during Global Hack Week. So if you're want to continue your learning in Python, then you will be able to do it. And yes, I just saw a message in the chat. Will you be sharing the code used in this session? All of the code can be found in the slides, which maybe not immediately after following the session, but within a few hours following the session should update on the MLH website that you use to check in for the event. Eventually, the slides should populate there. And that's going to have all of the code that I worked with today. So if you didn't catch something, you were unsure about something, you can use that. So again, with that, that's all I have. Thanks for joining me today and enjoy the rest of Global Hack Week. Thanks.